Did you ever think a world without US dollar hegemony? Maybe this is closer than you think. The world's reserve currency is in trouble. On Monday, June 2nd, the US dollar hit a 3-year low. At the same time, government bond yields are rising, and investor anxiety is spiking. They're worried about America's growing mountain of debt. Since 2022, investors have been losing money on both stocks and bonds. That's the kind of thing that typically happens in emerging markets, not in the United States. The guys that are smoking in the dynamite shed in Washington have created a scenario where the U.S. is starting to resemble countries like Brazil, just 5 or 10% more unstable. Stocks down, bonds down, the dollar down, all on the same day. That is shocking. So what are investors doing? They're rotating away from the US dollar into things like the Australian dollar, the Korean won, Bitcoin, platinum, palladium, gold, silver, basically anything that is not tied to the US dollar. The latest economic data was worse than expected. The U.S. manufacturing sector contracted in May for the second month in a row. The index fell to 48.5 in May from 50.9 in April. At the same time, fears over America's fiscal health are intensifying. The 30-year Treasury yield rose to 4.96%, almost 5%. That's the highest level since 2007. If you're a foreign investor, you're demanding higher returns because you now perceive higher risk. The higher the yield, the more expensive it becomes for the U.S. government to service its debt. All this week, we'll be watching the U.S. and China trade standoff heat up again. Both sides are accusing each other of violating a trade agreement signed just a month ago. If negotiations collapse, expect even more pressure on U.S. assets and the dollar. So here we are. The dollar's status as the world's reserve currency is under review. It's not just about short-term economic weakness, but also long-term concerns about debt, policy credibility, and global diversification. And don't forget, like the video and subscribe the channel to keep thinking the world how it really is.